Now, I want to paint this picture in your head. You're talking to your friend, right? And you're like, hey man, I think Amanda's really into you. I think maybe you guys can hit it off. And then he goes, nah, like, I'd never really date her type. So you start thinking, well, her type, like, what does that mean? Like, is it she's, really, she just jokes around too much? Maybe you say she's too reckless, maybe her sense of style. And he goes, no, just the color of her skin. You go, what? He goes, yeah, man, I don't really date people outside of my own race. I'm white, she's black, and I don't find her attractive. Is that racist? So this guy, let's say he has friends, and just black just was the first thing that came to mind. He has friends who are black, and he's fine, he gets along with them well. But he's like, I would not date a black person. I don't see them in that romantic way. Is that racist? You might say, what kind of a question is that? Obviously it is. I'd say, okay. Well, then I'd say, this time you're sitting with a friend, you're sitting with a girl, because girls are more likely to say this than guys. And again, same thing, you're like, hey, Tom's really into you. I think you guys could really hit it off. And she goes, no, I don't date guys his type. And you go, well, what do you mean? And she goes, I don't date anyone like under 6 feet. Is that discriminatory? Right, because what we're doing is you're not judging a person off their character, right? I know earlier we said like skin color, and now we're saying height. So it's, because the first one I've never heard out loud, right? The first one I've never heard someone like actually just out there say like, guys, I don't date Asians, man, or like Middle Easterns. There's a great guy just simply because of the color of his skin. But I have heard the short one. And if you look at both the context of short, like, are you really comparing them? Like, yeah, I am, because listen to me for a sec, right? Both of these things are not in your control, right? Both of them, they're things that you are just, you have it, or, you're just born with it, right? For most part, you can't do too much to change it. And, you are completely avoiding you're not judging a person on the merits of their character, on who they are as a person, right? And on things that, arguably they can't control. So my question to you is, if you said, the skin color thing is racist, which, is a very well thing to say, would you say the same thing about the height? What would you call someone who doesn't date people because of a height thing? Like, would you call that like short phobic? Like, but doesn't that sound a little silly to you? Like, is there really anything wrong with someone saying, hey, like, I just really like, dating a guy or girl with a certain height? Like, is that, like, what I'm trying to say here is, where's the line between preference, and that's okay, because you should have some choice in who you're mating with, and just in a biological sense, and no, like, that's not okay to say. So just take some time to think about that for a second. So think about the first example, think about the second example, and think about why. Because as human beings, we want to be constant, right? If we say yes, we generally want to have solid reasoning that we can reuse over and over again. So I'm curious, if you said yes to one but no to this one, I'm wondering, why that is, and what the difference is there. Last example, let's talk about weight. Let's talk about someone says, hey man, listen, this girl, she's really into you. He's like, yeah, listen, Denise is a sweet girl, but super respectfully, he just says, you know what, I'm really big into fitness. And I really want a partner who values fitness and health and nutrition in the same way that I do. Thus, I don't really find people that attractive who don't exercise, who have maybe who are a little bit overweight, depending on whatever that person's definition is. Now, again, immediately, you might look at that as fat phobic. You're like, dude, you're discriminating someone based on their body. You don't even know who they are as a person. At what point is it preference? And at what point does it become, quote unquote, fat phobic? Does it become, hey man, like, that's not cool? Because I've been thinking about that. And if it's super easy for you to answer all those questions, just really think about your reasoning. And I'm, and the reason why I'm asking these is not that I have an immediate answer for all of them, but from my own personal experience, when a friend asked me, like, hey man, do you ever think about, like, girls just really being into, like, taller guys? Like, isn't that weird to you? Like, that they're just like so open about it? And I was like, no man, not at all. Like, everyone has a preference, right? And that's total. For some people with tattoos, others like people who, I don't know, man, love to read. Some people like tall guys, some people like blonde girls. Like, it's just a preference, right? Whatever. Doesn't make a difference to me. And then when you go to the weight idea, I would think the exact same thing, right? It's just a preference. Working out is a big part of your life. Exercise, nutrition is a big part of your life. I'm not surprised that you want to see that in a partner. And someone not having that would, for lack of a better word, like, disqualify them from being a partner of yours. If said respectfully, right? But then the final one, You know, because if I'm following this kind of line of thought, you know, when you get to like, hey man, you know, I'm not gonna date this guy. Why? Because he's Middle Eastern. I don't date Middle Easterns, or I don't date Chinese people. Like, at what point is it just like, oh man, like that's, like at what point do you go like this isn't? It's, What do you think? What do you think about that? About that line between preference and discrimination? Now, obviously, I'm not saying you got to go around being a jerk to everyone. No, you're kind, you're respectful, you're friendly, you know, but you have things that you like and are attracted to more than other things, you know, but what things are fine to stick with and what things are like, no, man, like that's not okay.